Okay, so yeah, it is December 30th, 2018. My name is Chris Nesi. I'm the host of the House of EdTech podcast, which you could find on chrisnesi.com. Cover art is down there in the corner, or so it seems. So I just wanted to hop on here and do a little live streaming. It is snowing as I look past the monitor outside here in New Jersey. So it is cold and snowy, and what better thing to do than come on to YouTube Live and, talk a little education technology, answer your technology questions. If you're interested in podcasting or starting a podcast in 2018, I love to talk about this stuff. I love to get into content creation, and, it's just fun to, sometimes turn on the microphone and do what I do, which is this. I do want to, in 2018, do more live events. So live streaming. I'll be appearing and presenting at a number of conferences in 2018, which I'm excited about, of course, because I like to get out and do things. It's always fun and exciting. If you're joining me for the first time, thank you for checking out this live stream. I'd be honored if you checked out the House of EdTech podcast over on chrisnesi.com. If you're not subscribed, you can go to chrisnesi.com/subscribe. But 2018 is certainly going to bring about a lot of interesting things, I think, in education technology. I think we're going to see more students empowered. I know I'm doing my part in my own classroom, as I am running my class this year really project-based. And I'm teaching high school social studies, world history, thematically. So while not focusing on the timeline per se in my classroom, I'm using the 10 themes of social studies to guide my course this year. And it's been interesting. I will say this. It's basically one theme a month from the 10 themes of social studies. And instead of doing tests and quizzes, traditionally, I'm doing basically a project a month. January will be a little different because I'm going to be doing a number of, say, one-day projects towards the end of the month that fit a certain theme. So it's been a nice change of pace. The reasons why I'm doing this, why not? I mean, too often students in history classes, kids don't enjoy history so much. So for me, it's not about the history. For me, it's about the skills. It's about the experience. I'm not preparing my students to be on Jeopardy. So it's not about names and dates and memorizing anything like that. For me, it's learning the skills and, exercising our creativity and having them grow as creators and having, a positive experience. And that's not to say, be my friend or anything like that. It's about them growing as learners, growing as people, and putting technology in front of them that is going to help them to do that. So that's something that I think is really important. For those that are watching, if you're enjoying, this bit of conversation, please, share the link, tweet it out, post it on Facebook, let people know that you're watching. If you have questions, feel free to throw them into the live chat. I can see anything that comes in, and I'd be happy to answer your questions. So that would be exciting. It is really coming down here. The snow is falling. Let's see. What else? So just to talk a little podcasting. As of the middle of December of this month in 2017, I was happy and proud to release the 100th episode of the House of EdTech podcast. It was, it was magical, It was really exciting. I was really happy to release the 100th episode because I launched the House of EdTech back in January of 2014. Of course, at the recommendation of my wife, Caitlin, who, if you're not familiar with my story, basically she's also in education. She's a high school librarian. And she told me, you know what? I am tired of you talking to me all about education technology. So she suggested, hey, you should start a podcast and you could talk about all this stuff with anybody else who wants to listen. And here I am 100 episodes later. I released the podcast on the fortnight, every 2 weeks. And that's been really good, except in the months where there are 5 weeks and the opportunity to release 3 episodes. So that it doesn't happen always every 2 weeks, but for the most part, every 2 weeks, I'm releasing an episode of the podcast. And hey, Ryan Mitchell, thanks for checking in. And yes, the 100th episode was fun. My dad, John Nessie, of course, he's been a joy and a pleasure for me to have in my life for 36 years. And I've already got him on the schedule for 2018. He doesn't quite know when, but I'm hoping to have him on in the month of April around his birthday to kind of review and just see what other things he'd like to talk about and kind of get into. So, hey, thanks for throwing the question here in the chat on the YouTube. Really appreciate it. Ryan, what are your plans for 2018? What are you going to be doing to further education technology in your classroom? Please share in the comments, and I'd be happy to highlight it. Or, hey, if you don't want to put them in the chat, throw them in Voxer, throw them on SpeakPipe, and I'd be happy to include what you're doing in an upcoming episode. And actually, speaking of upcoming episodes, the first episode out of the gate in January, I'll preview the title here. It's going to be #1word2018, where House of EdTech episode 101, and that's fun to say. In the 101st episode of the podcast, I'll be talking about my one word for 2018 and kind of going over what my plans, hopes, and dreams are for 2018 for myself professionally, personally, with the podcast. And actually, I want to do more of this. I joke that I have a face for radio, but I'd like to really sharpen my sword on live streaming and creating, some more visual content, and possibly developing a more live component to the podcast. It would also be good practice for the awesome supporters who want to come in at the $10 level, where once a month I would be hosting a video meeting like this, except I'd be using Zoom.us to have a monthly meeting with up to 10 people and just kind of do some EdTech coaching, talking about education technology, podcasting, and really building a small community to kind of move everybody's instruction forward. Because I'm a firm believer that I am not the foremost expert on anything. I have an opinion, I have experience, I have a point of view, but by no means am I the smartest person in any room. Just ask my wife. So I want to be doing more things where I can actually talk to people. I mean, I enjoy talking to myself, but it's not, sometimes that gets boring. That's why I like to have guests on the show. That's why I like to have people right over here, here in the studio. So that's something that I'd be looking forward to doing. So yeah. Also, I would be foolish if I didn't promote one of the other podcasts that I am involved with, the Podcast PD podcast that I co-host with Stacy Lindis and AJ Bianco, which you can find at podcastpd.com. We are in the midst of the 12 days of podcasting. And let's see, can I pull it up here? I can probably pull it up here. So let's do that. Let's go to podcastpd.com and let's switch over to monitor 1. There we go. Hopefully that'll come through. And I'm just going to take my word for it and hope that you guys can see the screen that I'm sharing. So we are up to the 12 days of podcasting, and as of today, we are up to day number 6 of the 12 days of podcasting. And if you go over to podcastpd.com/12 days 2017, these images, these links will become active over the next couple of days. But we're releasing an episode 1 a day between Christmas and this coming Friday, January 5th. And we are giving you recommendations for either an entire podcast to become subscribed to or a specific episode, which I think, should also come along with subscribing to the show in its entirety. So let's see, some things that we have recommended so far. I go back to the homepage. We've talked about Wow in the World, The Art of Manliness, which I love. Hidden Brain, which shout out to Hidden Brain. They liked our tweet that we tweeted about them and the fact that we did this episode about one of their episodes. And AJ has been killing it. So first, follow AJ Bianco on Twitter at AJ Bianco, BIANCO, at AJ Bianco. And the episode Hidden Brain that he highlighted on day 4 of the 12 days of podcasts was the episode titled Kinder Gardening. And it talked about how we as parents of young children are either kind of how we shape our children and how that can be applied to the classroom and what we either want students to be, or should we kind of craft them like a woodworker would and give them the tools to kind of forge their own destiny rather than, plotting it out. You're going to be this and you're going to do this with your life and blah, 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 blah. And you just kind of like map it all out for them, as I know some students and children do experience in this world. But that was a good episode. Stacy on day 3 highlighting how I built this, an episode with Ross Bagdasarian and Janice Carmen, the creators of the Chipmunks, or those that are continuing the legacy of the Chipmunks. So that has been a very fun series. Be sure to head over to podcastpd.com/subscribe if you're not subscribed to the show. That would be a lot of fun if you did that. So now I'm back, and I think here after about 17 minutes, we will kind of wrap up this live stream. So I do want to thank you for taking the time to check out the live stream, and I look forward to doing some more live streaming in 2018. Enjoy the rest of your break, and actually, maybe I could do this. Here we go. Let's try this. So that's going to do it for this live stream edition of the House of EdTech podcast. It's been a pleasure. I want to thank those of you that came out to check this out, specifically Ryan Mitchell, because you did put a comment in, so I know you were here and I can say your name, so thank you, Ryan Mitchell. Keep the conversation going. I'd love to connect with you and hear your thoughts about the House of EdTech, education technology in general. This isn't really an episode, but again, go to chrisnessy.com. If you go to chrisnessy.com/feedback, that'll give you all the different ways you can get in touch with me, which I want to connect with you. If you've never said hello or acknowledge the fact that we have some sort of connection, please do so. I want to talk to you. I want to meet you if possible. That would be great. I'm a people guy. What else? I'm looking at notes that I usually use on the episodes here. If you enjoy the House of EdTech, hey, share it with somebody face-to-face. Tell them you listen to this podcast and where they can find it. Tweet about it. Use the hashtag House of EdTech. Connect with the program on Twitter at House of EdTech. If you weren't aware, I also have an Instagram for the podcast where I want to do, again, some live streaming there, give some behind the scenes of how I create the show, and just kind of continue to paint a picture for you. What else? Oh, there's also the opportunity if you want to become an awesome supporter of the podcast. Here in the live stream, I would like to thank my awesome supporters because without these folks, I would be doing it financially all by myself, but a little financial support does go a long way. So thank you to Eric Kurtz, Dan Gallagher, Peggy George, Jen Giffen, Mark Grindell, Jeff Herb, Scott Titmus, and Brent Warner. Thanks for all your support. If you are interested in becoming an awesome supporter of the House of Ed Tech, just go to chrisnessy.com/awesome. The next official episode of the House of Ed Tech, episode 101, will be released on January 14th, 2018. And for that, again, I'm going to be talking about hashtag #OneWord2018. There's the saxophone, which is one of my favorite parts of the whole podcasting process. But anyway, until next time, thank you for learning with me. And remember, using technology, it's not difficult. It really isn't. So just give it a try. And I will see you in January. The House of Ed Tech is a proud member of the Education Podcast Network. The Education Podcast Network. Podcasts for educators, podcasts by educators. For more, go to edupodcastnetwork.com.